Hello and welcome to another session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host Javed Mohammed here on the Oracle APAC Groundbreakers Tour for 2020. And I'm very honored to have with us Adrian Png, who is an Oracle ace and also a senior consultant at Insum. Adrian, welcome.
Hi, Avi. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, even if it is virtually. You've got a great backdrop. We'll come back to that a little bit later towards the end of the program.
Sure.
But first of all, just wanted to, so you're presenting at the Groundbreakers Tour. So you have a presentation, Store Your Treasures in the Cloud. It sounds really exciting. What is that about?
Well, ask any developer, they would, in their lifetime as a programmer, would have encountered a requirement where they had to put files stored with database records, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are many different ways we can do that. And more recently, I found, oh, well, I can actually try and save some database space and put that maybe in an object store. We've had that, with other cloud providers, AWS, Azure. They all had this solution. OCI was a little bit late in the game, but they're there, and I just wanted to kind of explore, how I could make better use of it and save my boss some money.
Okay, all right. So how do you go about, first of all, figuring out, in which case is there some kind of like a use case or something? How do you figure out when something like this makes sense to store something in the object storage?
Well, I when I joined Insum, I actually got on one project where they were pretty much like a construction company, and they had subcontractors who would go out to, do the work, and in order to report and get paid, they wanted to snap pictures and all that goes into the database. But after a while, the database gets all clunky and heavy, and things like backing up. They all started to kind of become a huge performance issue. Right? So I had to always constantly think of new ways to do things. And one of the ways that I found that could store these objects efficiently was to actually put them in the cloud. And for a while, just because the API signing and all that was a little bit complex with the Oracle Cloud, I didn't really have a lot of time to invest into finding a solution. But then we had one groundbreaking release of APAC, that was version 19.2, where the Oracle developer team actually did us all a huge favor. And they wrap all this complexity, behind a simple concept called web credentials. And with that and a little advice from friends in the community, I managed to find a way to do what I'm going to show efficiently. And that's how I kind of came about I just wanted to share that same pathway, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one with this problem out there.
And what kind of a saving are we talking about? So obviously, cost savings, space savings are always good, but can you give us some kind of a metric? Like, what are we talking about?
Well, not hard numbers, because it's always a case by case. And if you really want the details, maybe you should think about attending my session.
Oh, absolutely.
But I would say in a typical cloud environment, if you were going to
give us a range. I mean, and I know, by the way, I'm just acknowledging, and obviously it is going to be case by case, but just give us a range, or just give us a sense of what it might be.
Well, I'd say 2 to 3 times the amount of space and cost that you might have to incur.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. And while you're going through this process, like, I mean, is there any like other best practices you recommend in terms of just kind of, shifting this storage from one place into the object storage in the cloud?
Well, best practices would be, especially amongst APAC developers, it's always to try and package as much business logic and functionality in your PL SQL packages. Going through some of my demos, you might see me put in some PL SQL blocks of code, but some of these we have to really think about, wrapping them in reusable packages so that we can, use it in the different points of the application, and maybe even in different applications.
Okay, all right. Um, okay, so it sounds like a really exciting presentation, and we encourage the viewers out there to check it out. So this is part of the Oracle Groundbreakers, as you mentioned initially, the APAC tour. I have to ask you, you've got a great backdrop behind you. So are you gonna let us know where you're at and go? Well, that will be the first question, and I'll ask you another follow up after
Oh,
that.
sure. So the background you see, it's I believe it's actually called Eagle Mountain.
Okay.
I live out in Coquitlam, or for most people, they would be more familiar with Vancouver, right? So
Uh-huh.
I'm on the west coast of
British Columbia.
Canada. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
British Columbia.
Okay.
That's right.
Right. So, and this is a question I normally like to ask, especially when people are in a different geography. It's like, so
Yeah.
I'm sure there's many things to do in Vancouver, but if there's one experience or one food or something you would recommend people to do, what would it be?
Uh, well, if you're visiting British Columbia, don't just stay, in the city region of Vancouver itself. I would actually highly encourage a little road trip to the Okanagans, where we have beautiful scenery and lots of wine to savor.
Mhm.
But don't come this time of year. It's just wet. Come during summer. Yeah.
During summer. Okay. All right then. Well, thank you very much for the tip, as well as for sharing your time and discussing about storing your treasures in the cloud. All the best, Adrian.
Thank you. My pleasure.